Alex Carter wiped the sweat from his forehead as he lugged another box of canned goods up the narrow steps of his apartment building. The summer sun beat down relentlessly, but he didn't dare stop. At 17, he'd learned early that every extra dollar mattered. His mother, Clara, had worked double shifts at the diner to keep the rent paid and the bills from piling up, but it was never enough. Alex had taken on part-time jobs, delivering groceries, tutoring younger kids, even washing dishes at the same diner, to help make ends meet. The small apartment smelled faintly of reheated coffee and old laundry. The walls, once painted a cheerful yellow, had faded to a dull beige, and peeling posters of old rock bands hung crookedly. Despite the modest surroundings, Alex found comfort here. This was home, messy and imperfect, yet filled with the warmth of laughter, late-night homework sessions, and his mother's relentless optimism. "Alex! Lunch is ready." Clara called from the kitchen, her voice carrying the same cheerfulness she clung to despite their hardships. "Coming." Alex shouted back, wiping his hands on his worn jeans. He stepped inside and found a small plate of sandwiches waiting for him. Clara's eyes sparkled as she tried to hide her exhaustion behind a smile. "You're pushing yourself too hard again," she said, concern threading her tone. "You need to pace yourself. You've been working every day this week." "I've got it under control," Alex replied, trying to sound braver than he felt. "I just want to help. That's all." They ate in comfortable silence, punctuated by the occasional clatter of a fork or the distant hum of traffic outside. Life was predictable, sometimes monotonous, but Alex had grown used to its rhythm. School, work, home, repeat. It was a cycle he knew by heart, and despite the challenges, he liked knowing exactly where he stood. After lunch, he slung a worn backpack over his shoulder and headed out the door. The city streets were crowded with people, each rushing to their own destinations. Alex navigated the chaos effortlessly, familiar with every pothole, every shortcut, every stray cat that prowled the alleyways. He waved to Mr. Patel, the corner store owner, who grinned and called out, "Late again, Alex." "Never." Alex replied with a grin, even as he adjusted the stack of papers and packages he carried. The summer air was thick, but Alex didn't complain. He thrived on movement, on the sense of purpose that came with knowing he was contributing, helping, surviving. The truth was, despite the exhaustion and constant financial pressure, Alex loved his life. He loved his mother, he loved the community that had raised him, and he loved the feeling of earning something with his own hands. Yet, even in this rhythm of ordinary life, a quiet restlessness lingered. Sometimes, late at night, Alex would lie awake on his thin mattress and imagine a world beyond the cramped apartment, beyond the endless grind of work and school. A world where possibilities weren't limited by paycheck-to-paycheck living. A world where doors opened, and someone like him could step into something bigger, something extraordinary. He had no idea that today, of all days, the first of those doors was about to open. As Alex returned home from his deliveries that afternoon, a plain envelope lay on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a bill, nor a note from a teacher or a job. The handwriting was neat, almost formal, and his heart skipped a beat as he read the words stamped across the top: urgent, legal notice, confidential. Alex's hands trembled slightly as he unfolded the letter. Clara noticed immediately. "What is it?" she asked, worry flashing in her eyes. Alex hesitated. His pulse raced, his mind spinning with possibilities. Could it be some kind of scam? Or was it something impossible? Something he could never have imagined. The envelope contained a brief, official-looking letter from a law firm. Its words sent a shiver down his spine. Alex Carter was the sole heir of a recently deceased billionaire, a man whose existence he had never known, a man who had left him a vast fortune, and a world he had never even dreamed existed. Alex sank into a chair, the letter shaking in his hands. For a moment, the hum of the city outside seemed to fade, replaced by the deafening roar of disbelief. Everything he knew about his life, the struggles, the late nights, the endless responsibilities, suddenly collided with the unimaginable reality written in front of him. And in that instant, Alex knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Alex stared at the letter as if it might vanish if he looked away for even a second. The words blurred slightly, his mind racing faster than his eyes could follow. He's my father, he muttered, voice barely audible. Clara's hand rested on his shoulder, warm and steady, though her eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and awe. I don't understand, she whispered. All these years, you never mentioned anything about him. Who is he? Alex shook his head, the thought of a man who had lived a life of unimaginable wealth and power, yet remained completely unknown to him, sending a strange shiver down his spine. The letter provided few details, just a lawyer's contact information, instructions to keep the matter confidential, and a note emphasizing that Alex must appear at the law firm as soon as possible. What's the catch? Clara asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. There has to be a catch. Why now? I don't know, Alex admitted, running a hand through his hair. The reality of the situation was staggering. His life, which had been defined by hard work and modest means, was about to collide with a world so alien he couldn't even picture it. A billionaire father. Inherited fortune. Mansions, luxury cars, private jets, and perhaps most daunting of all, a family he had never met. Alex tried to steady himself. He felt a mixture of excitement and fear, a rush of adrenaline that left him trembling. He had always imagined escaping their small apartment, breaking free from the grind, but he had never thought it would happen like this, without warning, without explanation, and with consequences he could not yet understand. Clara reached over, taking both of his hands in hers. Alex, she said, her voice trembling, if this is real, if it's true, we have to think carefully. Are you ready for something like this? It's not just money, it's a whole new life, a new world, with rules we don't even know. Alex swallowed hard, his stomach twisting into knots. He remembered the late nights delivering groceries, the days spent tutoring, the evenings helping his mother cook meals with what little they had. He remembered the friends he had, the routines, the struggles, all of it now seemed distant, almost trivial in comparison to the enormous opportunity staring him in the face. I think I have to find out, Alex said, determination creeping into his voice. Even if it's scary, even if it changes everything. I need to know who he was. I need to know why he never came into my life, and what this inheritance really means. Clara nodded slowly, pride and worry interwoven in her gaze. Then we'll do this together, she said. No matter what happens, we face it side by side. The following morning, Alex and Clara arrived at the law firm, a sleek glass building that gleamed like a monument to power and influence. Alex's heart pounded as they were led into a private office, where a sharply dressed lawyer greeted them with a professional but reserved smile. Mr. Carter, the lawyer began, placing a thick folder on the mahogany desk, thank you for coming on such short notice. I understand this is overwhelming, but everything you need to know is here. Alex opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters that painted a picture he could hardly believe. His father, Richard Lancaster, had been a powerful and enigmatic figure in the business world, philanthropist, investor, and owner of a vast international conglomerate. There were images of lavish estates, charitable events, and even private family portraits, of a family he had never met. Your father, he never told you about this life, the lawyer explained gently. But it is now your responsibility to step into it, if you choose. Along with the assets, there are expectations, obligations, and scrutiny. People will watch you closely. The media, the business world, even those inside his own company. Everything you do will be noticed. Alex closed his eyes, letting the weight of the revelation settle. A life of unimaginable privilege was now within his grasp, but with it came pressures and challenges he had never faced. Questions swirled. Who were his father's associates? What enemies had he made? What family dynamics awaited him? Clara squeezed his hand, pulling him out of his reverie. "Alex, whatever happens, remember who you are," she said softly. "You're still the same person who cares about the people around you. Don't let this wealth, this world, change your heart." Alex nodded, feeling both fear and excitement mingle into a strange exhilaration. For years, he had dreamed of escape, of a life beyond the struggle. Now, that dream was real, but he realized that this opportunity came with challenges that were far more complex than delivering groceries or keeping the rent paid. And as they left the law firm, stepping back into the bustling city streets that had always been his home, Alex understood that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. He was no longer just a boy trying to survive. He was the heir to a billionaire, and the first step into this unknown world had already begun. Alex sat in the sleek black SUV, the city skyline disappearing behind him as the car whisked him toward a reality he had only glimpsed in movies and magazines. Clara sat beside him, her hands folded tightly in her lap, sharing his mixture of awe and anxiety. Neither spoke, the silence heavy with anticipation. Finally, the car slowed in front of a towering glass building, the headquarters of Lancaster Global Enterprises. Security cameras tracked their arrival, and uniformed guards observed them with polite suspicion. Alex took a deep breath. This was it, the first real step into a world that had always seemed unreachable. A tall, impeccably dressed man emerged from the lobby and greeted them with a firm handshake. "Mr. Carter, welcome," he said, his tone professional yet warm. "I'm Nathaniel Reed, your father's executive advisor. I'll be guiding you through the initial steps of understanding your inheritance and responsibilities." Alex studied Nathaniel carefully. There was something in his demeanor, confidence, intelligence, and calm authority, that immediately suggested he had seen and handled crises like this countless times. Clara whispered under her breath, "He looks like he belongs in a movie." Alex could only nod, unsure if it was fear, excitement, or both that made his stomach twist. Nathaniel led them through a labyrinth of glass corridors, each more extravagant than the last, until they reached a private office filled with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city below. He gestured for them to sit. "Before you inherit anything, Alex," Nathaniel began, "you need to understand that your father's life wasn't just about money. It was about influence, decisions, and consequences. Every choice he made, every investment, every public appearance, it carried weight. And now, it will carry weight for you." Alex swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of the responsibility pressing down. I don't know if I'm ready for all that," he admitted. "I've never lived in that world. I've barely managed my own life." Nathaniel's expression softened, but his eyes remained sharp. "No one expects you to know everything immediately. Your father chose you for a reason, he believed in your judgment, your character. But guidance is essential. I'll teach you how to navigate boardrooms, investments, philanthropy, even the media." For the next several hours, Nathaniel walked Alex and Clara through the empire their father had built. He showed Alex the company's sprawling international offices, detailed their business portfolio, and explained the philanthropic projects that had defined Richard Lancaster's public image. Alex listened, absorbing everything like a sponge, though the sheer scale of it all left him dizzy. "This world," Nathaniel said, "is fascinating, but it's ruthless. People will test you, question your legitimacy, and some will try to take advantage of the fact that you're new to it. You must learn quickly whom to trust and how to act decisively. Your father's name will open doors, but it will also invite scrutiny." Clara leaned over to whisper, "Are you sure we can do this?" Alex glanced at her, his eyes reflecting both fear and determination. "We have to," he said firmly. "This is our chance." I can't let it slip away. Later that evening, Nathaniel arranged a private dinner at Lancaster's penthouse, a luxurious suite filled with art, history, and echoes of a life Alex had never known. As they dined, Nathaniel introduced Alex to a series of mentors, experts in finance, public relations, and global strategy, who would serve as advisors as Alex navigated his new role. One of them, a woman named Sophia, leaned forward with a keen smile. "Alex, it's not just about wealth," she said. "It's about leadership, responsibility, and vision. Your father believed that the real value of an inheritance is the ability to change lives, not just for yourself, but for the world. That's what we'll teach you." Alex nodded, absorbing every word. His mind flashed back to the cramped apartment he had shared with Clara, to the late nights they had struggled to make ends meet. Everything had changed in an instant, yet he felt a strange sense of clarity. He realized that the lessons of hardship he had learned would now become his greatest asset in navigating this new world. As the evening drew to a close, Nathaniel placed a reassuring hand on Alex's shoulder. "You won't be alone in this," he said. "But remember, Alex, the journey is as important as the destination. Your father left more than money, he left a legacy, and now it's yours to uphold. Are you ready to begin?" Alex looked out at the glittering city lights, a mixture of fear, anticipation, and determination flooding through him. He clenched his fists, feeling the weight of history, responsibility, and opportunity all at once. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm ready." Nathaniel smiled, a hint of pride in his eyes. "Then welcome to Lancaster Global Enterprises, Mr. Carter. Your journey starts now." The next morning, Alex woke to the quiet hum of the penthouse. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow across the luxurious furniture and polished floors. Clara was already awake, her fingers scrolling through her phone as she read news headlines about Lancaster Global Enterprises. Alex took a deep breath, knowing that today would be the first real test of his new life. Nathaniel arrived promptly, sharp as ever in his tailored suit. "Alex, today you'll attend your first board meeting," he said. "It's not just a formality. This will show you how the company operates and how people respond to new leadership. Remember, confidence and clarity matter more than appearances." Alex nodded, a knot of anxiety twisting in his stomach. "I've never been in a room like that," he admitted. "All those executives, they probably know more than I do." Nathaniel's gaze was steady. "Knowledge can be learned. Confidence, integrity, and the ability to listen, those are innate. And those are what you'll need to demonstrate today." The elevator ride felt impossibly long as they ascended to the top floor, where the boardroom loomed like a cathedral of power. Polished mahogany tables stretched the length of the room, and leather chairs surrounded it like sentinels. Executives in impeccable suits reviewed documents, exchanged nods, and whispered among themselves, their sharp gazes flicking to Alex as he entered. Alex's heart pounded, but he squared his shoulders and followed Nathaniel to the head of the table. The CEO's assistant introduced him. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex Carter, the newly recognized heir of Lancaster Global Enterprises." Murmurs spread around the room. Some faces were skeptical, others curious. Alex felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him, each silently judging. He could sense the unspoken question, does he belong here? The meeting began, focusing on a high-stakes acquisition that could define the company's future. Nathaniel whispered key details into Alex's ear, reminding him of critical points, potential pitfalls, and personalities to watch. Alex took notes, absorbing every detail. As discussions grew heated, one senior executive, a sharp-tongued woman named Victoria, challenged every suggestion, testing Alex with pointed questions. "And you, Mr. Carter," she said, her voice firm, "how do you plan to evaluate the risks of this acquisition? Do you even understand the financial implications?" Alex felt a flicker of panic but drew on everything Nathaniel had taught him. He took a measured breath, recalling the struggles he and Clara had endured. "I may not have years of corporate experience," he said calmly, "but I know the value of careful analysis and collaboration. I've reviewed the projections and risks, and I propose we conduct a phased integration strategy that mitigates exposure while capitalizing on market opportunities." There was a pause, a tangible tension, before Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing him. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. "Impressive," she said. "For someone new, that's a sensible approach." The meeting continued, with Alex contributing cautiously but thoughtfully. He asked insightful questions, acknowledged the expertise of others, and gradually earned a measure of respect. Nathaniel occasionally leaned in, whispering reminders or clarifying points, guiding him like a coach. By the end of the session, Alex felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The room that had seemed intimidating hours ago now felt like a stage he could navigate. Executives approached him, some with advice, others with tentative congratulations. One older man clapped him on the shoulder. "You've got guts, kid. I can respect that." Outside the boardroom, Nathaniel smiled knowingly. "You did well," he said. "But remember, this is just the beginning. Every decision from here on will be scrutinized, and your ability to balance confidence with humility will define you." Alex exhaled, letting the tension drain from his body. He knew the path ahead was fraught with pressure, politics, and expectations, but he also felt a spark of something new, an understanding that he could rise to the challenge. Clara joined him in the lobby, her eyes wide with admiration. You handled that," she said softly. "I didn't think you'd be able to speak so confidently." Alex smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "It wasn't just me," he said. "Nathaniel guided me, and I think I can actually do this." As they left the building, the city's bustle felt different. Alex's world had expanded overnight, but the lessons he learned today were clear. Power and pressure could be navigated, not with arrogance, but with preparation, patience, and integrity. For the first time, he felt not like an outsider, but like someone ready to claim his place. The journey had only begun, and he knew the challenges would multiply, but so would the opportunities to prove himself. The day after his first board meeting, Alex couldn't shake the lingering tension from Victoria's sharp gaze. Though she had acknowledged his competence, there was no mistaking the subtle undertone of challenge in her words. In the world of Lancaster Global, every compliment seemed layered, every nod contained an unspoken test. As he arrived at the office, Nathaniel greeted him with a look of both concern and resolve. "Alex," he began, leading him into his office, "there's something you need to understand about this company. Not everyone will accept you, and some will actively work against you. You need to identify allies and be wary of adversaries." Alex swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility pressing on him like never before. "Enemies?" he asked, unease in his voice. Nathaniel nodded. "Yes. Inheritance isn't just about money. It's about control, influence, and legacy. Some people see you as an intruder, someone who could disrupt the status quo, and they won't hesitate to protect their positions." As Alex navigated the marble hallways, he felt eyes following him, whispers carried in the air like invisible currents. It wasn't paranoia, it was reality. Executives who had once been cordial now offered stiff smiles or cool nods. He realized quickly that earning their trust would be harder than proving himself in a single meeting. Later, in a quiet corner of the cafeteria, Victoria approached him. Her expression was sharp, almost predatory, yet she maintained the perfect professional mask. "Mr. Carter," she said, sliding into the seat across from him, "I've been thinking about your strategy yesterday. Bold, but risky." Alex braced himself. "I understand," he replied. "I welcome any advice." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly. "Advice isn't just about numbers or projections. It's about instinct, influence, and reading people. Do you know how many times leaders have been undone by their own teams? Alex nodded, sensing the veiled warning. I'm listening. Victoria leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. There are those here who will test you at every turn. Some will try to undermine your decisions quietly, others overtly. Watch carefully, trust sparingly, and never underestimate the power of perception. Before Alex could respond, she rose, leaving him with a swirl of anxiety and curiosity. Her words echoed in his mind. He knew she was right, this was more than a company, it was a battlefield of ego, ambition, and hidden agendas. That evening, Alex returned to the penthouse, mentally exhausted. Clara greeted him with a warm smile, trying to lighten the mood. How was your first taste of corporate intrigue? She teased, though her eyes reflected concern. Alex sank into the leather couch, rubbing his temples. It's more complicated than I imagined. Every word, every decision. I can't tell who's truly supportive. Clara sat beside him, placing a hand over his. You've faced challenges before, Alex. Remember what it felt like when you first stepped into the orphanage. You learned quickly then, and you'll learn here too. You're not alone. The next day, Alex found himself in a high-stakes negotiation with a major client, one that could secure a critical partnership for Lancaster Global. He felt the invisible eyes of his colleagues, including Victoria, scrutinizing every word. As the meeting progressed, subtle challenges arose. Questions designed to expose his inexperience, negotiations aimed at testing his composure. Alex drew on every ounce of focus and insight he had gained. He listened carefully, responded thoughtfully, and leaned on Nathaniel's earlier guidance about leveraging alliances. Slowly, the client's skepticism shifted, and by the end of the session, the deal was secured. Though victorious, Alex understood the lesson clearly. Triumph here would never be simple. Every success was temporary unless he could navigate the intricate web of rivalries within the company. He realized he would need strategy, intuition, and emotional intelligence to survive and thrive. Back in his office, Nathaniel gave him a rare approving nod. You handled that well, he said. But remember, the shadows are always there. Today it was subtle, tomorrow, it could be more aggressive. Stay vigilant. Alex exhaled, a mix of relief and determination settling over him. The world of the billionaire's empire was glamorous, yes, but it was also ruthless. Power and influence were tools, but they were also weapons. Every step he took now required precision, patience, and careful judgment. That night, as he stared out over the city lights from the penthouse, Alex understood something crucial. Wealth and privilege came with a hidden cost, one that demanded vigilance and courage. Inheriting the empire wasn't just about taking control, it was about understanding the battlefield, recognizing allies, and facing enemies without losing sight of who he was and what he stood for. The shadow of rivalry had been cast, and Alex knew the real test of his inheritance had only just begun. The following morning, Alex walked into the boardroom with a quiet sense of determination. After yesterday's negotiations, he had gained a tentative foothold, but he knew the unseen currents of rivalry were far from settled. The company's corridors were buzzing, whispers of yesterday's success intertwining with subtle murmurs of doubt. As he settled into his chair, a voice from across the table interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Carter," said Simon, the CFO, a man notorious for his guarded demeanor, "I'd like to discuss the financial projections for the East Coast expansion. I have concerns about your approach." Alex met Simon's gaze evenly. He had expected resistance. "Of course," he replied calmly. "I'd value your perspective." The meeting began with what seemed like technical critiques, but Alex sensed the underlying test. Simon's questions were sharp, almost probing for cracks in his understanding. Alex carefully navigated each point, leaning on the meticulous research he had prepared, his confidence growing with every well-reasoned response. By the time the discussion shifted to potential pitfalls and contingencies, Alex noticed someone sitting quietly at the back of the room, Elena, the company's chief innovation officer. She had a reputation for brilliance but was famously difficult to read, her loyalty often seeming conditional on outcomes. After the meeting, she approached him in the hallway, her expression unreadable. "I've been observing how you handle pressure," she said. "Most new heirs would have crumbled under Simon's barrage, but you didn't." "Impressive." Alex nodded cautiously. "Thank you. I could use allies, but I know trust is earned here." Elena smiled faintly. "Trust is a currency in this company, sometimes more valuable than money. I think we might help each other, if you're willing to learn and not let ego interfere." For the first time since his inheritance was revealed, Alex felt a spark of hope. An alliance with someone of Elena's intellect and strategic vision could shift the balance of influence in his favor. But he also knew that such a partnership would be scrutinized, potentially interpreted as a threat by those who opposed him. Over the next week, Alex and Elena began working in tandem. They met in quiet corners of the sprawling headquarters, strategizing over charts, forecasts, and innovative proposals. Elena's sharp insights complemented Alex's fresh perspective, and together, they devised a bold plan for expanding Lancaster Global's market share without compromising the company's long-term stability. However, the alliance did not go unnoticed. Victoria, ever watchful, had observed their collaboration from afar. Her interest was piqued, but she remained non-committal, her demeanor carefully neutral. Alex wondered if she was considering him a worthy partner, or preparing her next challenge. One late evening, as Alex pored over reports in the office, Elena approached him with a confidential tip. "I've discovered discrepancies in the supply chain reports," she whispered. "Certain vendors are inflating costs, and it appears some internal players might be benefiting from it. I think it's time you knew who might be working against you." Alex's heart raced. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. If trusted vendors and internal players were compromised, not only could the company's profits suffer, but his credibility would be called into question. Elena handed him a file, her fingers brushing his briefly, a silent gesture of trust. "We need to handle this carefully," she cautioned. Exposing the wrong person too early could backfire. Alex reviewed the documents, each page revealing a layer of deceit he had never anticipated. Names, figures, and patterns of manipulation were laid bare, and he realized the magnitude of the internal threat. He needed allies who could think like him, act decisively, and remain discreet. That night, Alex sat in the quiet of his penthouse, the city lights stretching endlessly below him. He contemplated the delicate balance of power, the line between friendship and strategy, and the invisible web of loyalty and betrayal. Elena's support was invaluable, but he knew that alliances in the corporate world were often transient, subject to pressure, opportunity, and ambition. Yet, for the first time, he felt a flicker of confidence. He wasn't alone. He had someone who understood the stakes, someone willing to navigate the treacherous waters of Lancaster Global alongside him. And for Alex, that trust, earned through respect, competence, and shared vision, was more potent than any title or inheritance. As he prepared for the next day's meeting, Alex realized a critical truth. In the world of power and wealth, enemies could be expected, rivals anticipated, but true allies were rare. And with Elena by his side, he was beginning to feel the first stirrings of a strategy that could not only secure his inheritance but also redefine the company's future. The shadows of rivalry remained, but now, there was a glimmer of light, a potential alliance that could turn the tide in his favor. And Alex, for the first time, felt that he might not only survive Lancaster Global's treacherous landscape, but thrive within it. The following afternoon, Alex found himself standing before the private archives of Lancaster Global, a room few had ever entered. The air was thick with the faint scent of old paper and polished wood, and the soft hum of the city below seemed distant, as if the world itself were holding its breath. He had requested access after Elena's discovery of the supply chain irregularities, believing that the past might hold the key to understanding the present turmoil. As the archivist, an elderly man named Mr. Whitmore, unlocked the door and handed Alex a thick leather-bound ledger, he paused. "Be careful what you seek, young Mr. Carter. Families have crumbled over lesser truths." Alex's jaw tightened. "I need to know. Not just for the company, but for myself." Hours passed as he pored over documents, correspondence, and records that dated back decades. Patterns emerged: business dealings laced with secrecy, strategic moves hidden behind legal language, and decisions that shaped not only Lancaster Global's empire but the lives of those within the family. Then, tucked away in a folder labeled personal, he found a series of letters from his father, addressed to someone he had never met. His fingers trembled as he read, each word revealing a side of his father he had never imagined: vulnerability, regret, and a deliberate concealment of a part of his own life. Alex discovered that his father had fathered a child before his marriage to Alex's mother, a child who had been sent away, hidden from the world for protection, and raised by a trusted family friend in another state. The implications hit him like a thunderclap. A hidden sibling. A living, breathing person who was legally entitled to a portion of the family fortune. Elena, who had accompanied him to the archives, noticed the pallor on his face. "Alex, what is it?" she asked softly. He turned to her, eyes wide with disbelief. I have a sibling. A half-sibling. My father kept it a secret my entire life." Elena's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "That changes everything. This isn't just about business anymore. It's personal." The revelation brought a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Alex realized that the delicate balance he had been trying to achieve within Lancaster Global now extended beyond the boardroom. He had to navigate the moral and ethical complexities of introducing a hidden heir into the family's intricate network. Determined to find answers, Alex delved deeper. He uncovered letters from the family friend who had raised the child, meticulously documenting their upbringing, education, and achievements. The sibling, whose name was Isabella, had grown into a remarkable woman, intelligent, compassionate, and entirely unaware of her true lineage. A surge of urgency gripped Alex. If Isabella discovered her heritage in the wrong way, through gossip, legal disputes, or opportunistic rivals, it could destabilize the family and the company. He needed to approach her carefully, with transparency and empathy, yet without exposing Lancaster Global to unnecessary risk. Later that evening, Alex sat in his office, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. He thought about the countless conversations he had had with his father, the moments of absence, and the subtle clues he had ignored. How many decisions had been influenced by secrets long buried? How many relationships strained under unspoken truths? Elena, ever observant, stood by the doorway. "You have a choice," she said quietly. "You can let this secret control you, or you can confront it, shape it, and perhaps even use it to strengthen the family and the company." Alex's mind raced. Trust had been the currency that mattered in Part 6, and now, the stakes had escalated. He would need allies, not just Elena, but potentially others within the company, to navigate this revelation responsibly. The next morning, he arranged a discreet meeting with Isabella under the guise of a philanthropic initiative. When she arrived, she radiated warmth and confidence, unaware of the seismic truth about to be unveiled. Alex felt a knot in his stomach but steadied himself. The moment required honesty, courage, and the right words. He could not afford mistakes. "I have something important to share with you," Alex began, choosing each word carefully. "Something that may change how you see yourself and the world around you." Isabella's brow furrowed slightly, a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Go on," she said. Alex took a deep breath and recounted the history, the letters, the hidden sibling, and the deliberate secrecy of their father. He watched her closely, noting every subtle reaction, her eyes widening, a hand trembling slightly, a sharp intake of breath. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. When he finished, Isabella's face softened, a mixture of shock, contemplation, and a dawning understanding. "So, all these years, I've been part of this family, and I never knew it," she whispered. "Yes," Alex replied gently. "But I want to do this right. I want to ensure that you are welcomed not as a rival, but as family." Isabella paused, her gaze steadying. "Then let's do it right," she said, a hint of determination in her voice. "Together." Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, legal, emotional, and corporate, but for the first time, he sensed the possibility of unity. In uncovering a secret that could have divided them, he had instead found a potential ally, a true partner in navigating the complex world of Lancaster Global. For Alex, the lesson was clear: sometimes, the most disruptive secrets hold the greatest potential for connection, growth, and unexpected strength. And in that quiet office, amidst the hum of the city, two siblings began the delicate, hopeful journey of rediscovering family and reclaiming the future together. The following week, Lancaster Global hummed with quiet tension. While Alex and Isabella had begun forging a cautious bond, word of the hidden heir's emergence had begun to leak through subtle channels. Rumors, as always, had a way of traveling faster than official announcements. In a sleek corner office high above the city, Victor Hadley, a longtime executive and Alex's father's former confidant, watched the news unfold on his tablet. Victor had been loyal, or so everyone believed, but beneath the polished exterior lurked ambition, resentment, and a deep sense of entitlement. The revelation of Isabella's existence was a threat to the empire he had meticulously helped maintain and, more importantly, to the influence he had enjoyed for decades. Victor tapped the screen impatiently. "So, the boy's father kept a secret, did he?" he muttered, voice low, teeth clenched. "And now some unknown girl waltzes in, claiming her share. No. Not under my watch." He picked up his phone and began calling carefully chosen allies within the company, board members who were quietly dissatisfied, managers who had long felt overlooked, and even lawyers with a penchant for corporate maneuvering. Each call was deliberate, designed to sow uncertainty without revealing his hand too soon. Meanwhile, Alex and Isabella were still navigating the personal dynamics of their newfound relationship. Isabella had spent the past few days poring over company reports, understanding the financial structure, and asking careful questions about past decisions. Alex marveled at her insight. Though she had been hidden from the family, her intellect and intuition were undeniable. "Alex," she said one morning, tracing her finger across a spreadsheet filled with supply chain data, "I noticed a pattern of redirected funds from certain divisions. It's subtle, but deliberate. Someone is manipulating results to gain leverage." Alex's stomach tightened. He had felt unease, but hearing Isabella articulate it so precisely made the threat tangible. "Victor," he murmured, the name tasting bitter. "He's not just a relic of the past, he's planning something." Days later, a formal board meeting convened in the company's glass-walled conference room. The tension was palpable, an invisible current that drew everyone's attention. Victor entered with a calm, measured gait, projecting the perfect mask of composure. Yet, every eye in the room, particularly Alex's and Isabella's, could sense the undercurrent of aggression beneath his polished demeanor. Victor began the meeting with a carefully crafted speech, congratulating the company on recent achievements, emphasizing stability, and subtly questioning the wisdom of recent structural changes, thinly veiled references to Alex's and Isabella's growing influence. His words were loaded, each sentence a calculated maneuver designed to unsettle and intimidate. Alex caught Isabella's eye. "We need to remain calm," he whispered. "Don't let him bait us." Isabella nodded subtly, her mind racing. She had grown up with adversity, albeit in a different form, and she knew how to wield both caution and assertiveness. We have the evidence, she said quietly, and we need to present it strategically. Victor, sensing resistance, escalated. He proposed a series of audits and managerial reshuffles that, if approved, would have marginalized Alex and Isabella's influence, subtly stripping them of decision-making power. Board members murmured in agreement with his reasoning, drawn in by his reputation and polished rhetoric. But Alex, relying on Isabella's research, countered with precise data, highlighting discrepancies in Victor's records, supply chain inefficiencies, and decisions that, if exposed, would implicate him in manipulative financial practices. The room's atmosphere shifted, whispers turned to attentive silence as Victor's confident facade faltered for the first time. "You're suggesting," Victor said, voice tightening, "that I've acted in bad faith?" Alex's tone remained steady, unwavering. "I'm suggesting that your actions don't align with the company's best interests. The data speaks for itself." Isabella, sensing an opportunity, stepped forward. "And I can corroborate these findings with third-party reports. This isn't just opinion, it's documented evidence. The board has a duty to act in the company's interest, not individual ambition." The tension in the room was electric. Victor's jaw clenched, and for a fleeting moment, he looked like a predator assessing a rival, but Isabella's calm, precise delivery left no room for manipulation. By the end of the meeting, the board voted narrowly to initiate an internal review of Victor's proposed reshuffles, effectively halting his immediate plans. Victor left the room with a tight-lipped expression, clearly plotting his next move. Alex and Isabella exhaled, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over them. Later that evening, Alex leaned back in his office chair, exhaustion evident in his posture. Isabella joined him, offering a small, encouraging smile. "We bought ourselves some time," she said softly, but her eyes held the fire of determination. "He's clever, but we're not powerless." Alex nodded. "We need to be vigilant. Every move, every decision from here on out, we can't underestimate him. He sees the family as his empire, and now, we're disrupting his vision." Isabella's fingers brushed a framed photograph on Alex's desk, one of their father, smiling, unaware of the turmoil that would follow his secrets. "Then we do this together," she said firmly. "We protect what's ours, and we protect each other." Outside, the city lights glittered like distant stars, indifferent to the battle unfolding within the walls of Lancaster Global. Inside, two siblings stood united against a cunning rival, the first sparks of their alliance igniting a fire that would shape the destiny of both family and empire. The war had just begun. The internal review had bought Alex and Isabella some breathing room, but the calm was fleeting. Victor Hadley, now fully aware that his subtle manipulations had been detected, was plotting a counterstrike. And in the corporate world, battles were rarely fought alone. Alliances could shift like sand, and today's friend could become tomorrow's adversary. Alex sat in his office late at night, the city skyline glowing beyond the glass walls. Isabella had left a few minutes earlier, promising to return with additional reports from external auditors. He ran his hands through his hair, frustration simmering. Victor had underestimated them, but he wouldn't make that mistake twice. The phone rang, breaking the silence. Alex picked up, expecting it to be Isabella. Instead, a calm, unfamiliar voice spoke on the other end. "Mr. Lancaster. My name is Marcus Kane. I represent certain investors who have long been concerned about the leadership structure at Lancaster Global. I believe we can be mutually beneficial." Alex frowned. "Who exactly are you? And what do you mean by mutually beneficial?" Marcus's voice was smooth, measured, almost disarmingly polite. "I can provide information, insight, and leverage. In exchange, your family's empire remains secure, and my interests are aligned with your long-term growth. But time is of the essence. There are forces within the company that cannot be trusted." Alex's instinct screamed caution. Anyone approaching him with offers of help at a moment like this was likely playing a game of double-edged swords. I don't know if I can trust you, he said carefully. That's understandable, Marcus replied. Trust must be earned, and I am prepared to demonstrate my value. Consider it an investment in your future, and Isabella's as well. Meanwhile, Isabella had returned with a thick folder of reports. She glanced at Alex's phone call and raised an eyebrow. Who is that? She asked, sensing tension. I'm not sure yet, Alex admitted. Some guy named Marcus Kane. Claims he can help us counter Victor, but I don't trust anyone blindly. Isabella nodded, understanding immediately. We need to verify him before any decisions are made. Victor might have planted him as a trap. The next day, Marcus appeared in person, arriving at Lancaster Global in an unassuming sedan, his tailored suit suggesting both sophistication and careful calculation. He greeted Alex and Isabella with an easy smile that masked a steel-like precision. I've reviewed the situation, he said, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. Victor is clever, ruthless even. But he's predictable if you know what to look for. Isabella leaned forward, eyes sharp. Predictable? You mean he's underestimating us? Marcus nodded. Exactly. He believes that tradition and hierarchy are on his side. That he's untouchable because of his history with your father. But you have an advantage, knowledge, intuition, and a legitimate claim that no one can ignore. Alex folded his arms. And what exactly do you want in return? Influence, Marcus said simply. A seat at the table, a voice in strategic decisions, until Victor is neutralized. After that, I walk away, no strings attached. You gain protection and insider knowledge. I gain nothing more than assurance that I wasn't wrong about loyalty and leverage. Isabella exchanged a look with Alex. Both understood the subtle trap in his words, trust him now, or risk losing valuable insight. Hesitate, and Victor's next move could strike before they had any defenses in place. Alex spoke first, voice steady but cautious. All right. We'll hear you out. But any deception, any hidden motives, and you're out. Do you understand? Marcus's smile widened, almost imperceptibly. Crystal clear. Over the next few days, Marcus provided intel that was both accurate and strategically revealing. He highlighted Victor's patterns, exposing alliances with board members, previous attempts to divert funds, and subtle signs of his attempts to sway key executives. Every revelation was a calculated gem, designed to build trust while empowering Alex and Isabella. But the siblings knew better than to relax. He's giving us gold, Isabella whispered one evening as they reviewed the latest reports. But nothing comes free. Marcus Kane has his own agenda. We have to stay 3 steps ahead. Alex nodded, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This alliance is dangerous, but necessary. Victor isn't playing by the rules. Neither can we. As Lancaster Global's corridors buzzed with the quiet tension of corporate warfare, Alex and Isabella realized that the real challenge wasn't just outsmarting Victor, it was navigating the treacherous waters of alliances where friends could quickly become foes. Later that night, Alex stared out over the city, reflecting on the game unfolding. Marcus Kane's presence was both a gift and a threat, a mirror reflecting the complexity of power, loyalty, and ambition. In the shadows, Victor was already plotting, and in the light of day, Marcus might not be as trustworthy as he seemed. Yet, for the first time, Alex felt the subtle thrill of control. He and Isabella had allies, intelligence, and an unbreakable sibling bond. Together, they would navigate the dangers, expose Victor, and ensure that the legacy of Lancaster Global remained in rightful hands. But every move had consequences. And in this high-stakes game, one wrong step could cost everything. The corporate battlefield was shifting, and Alex knew that brute force alone wouldn't secure victory. Victor's influence stretched far beyond boardrooms, his reputation, charisma, and cunning had given him a seemingly unassailable edge. To turn the tide, Alex needed a secret weapon, a leverage so unexpected it would disrupt Victor's carefully constructed world. It all started with an old journal, tucked away in a drawer in his father's private study. Alex had found it while going through archives to better understand his father's strategies. It wasn't just a record of financial dealings or corporate blueprints, it contained personal insights, private letters, and notes on projects Victor had tried to manipulate years ago. Most importantly, it hinted at a hidden partnership, one Victor had assumed was long forgotten. Isabella was the first to spot its potential. "Alex, look at this," she whispered, holding a yellowed page with elegant handwriting. "This isn't just history. It's a map of influence, deals, and, wait, here. My God, there's a secret trust our father set up. Victor never knew it existed." Alex leaned over, his pulse quickening. "A trust? Are you saying it's liquid assets or something else?" "Both," Isabella said, excitement and caution mixing in her tone. "But more importantly, it's tied to intellectual property, patents, ideas, and proprietary technologies Victor has been trying to claim under Lancaster Global. If we unlock this, it could shift the balance of power entirely." Over the next few days, they pored over the journal, tracing investments, signatures, and obscure references. Every line, every margin note was a clue. Victor had assumed he knew the entirety of the company's assets, but the journal revealed an untapped reservoir of value, a hidden arsenal their father had built as a safeguard for the family. Marcus Kane proved invaluable in this stage. With his network of contacts, he helped Alex and Isabella verify the authenticity of the trust, uncover hidden patents, and establish the legal framework to claim them. Even so, Marcus's involvement was a calculated risk. Every move had to be precise, Victor's eyes were everywhere, and any misstep could alert him. One late night, Isabella gasped as she uncovered the first major piece of the puzzle. "Alex, this patent, it's revolutionary. If we implement this technology, Lancaster Global could dominate the market in ways Victor never anticipated. He won't see it coming." Alex's mind raced. He realized that the true power wasn't in the wealth itself, it was in timing, in the ability to wield assets strategically. This was more than a financial advantage, it was a psychological one. Victor thrived on control and intimidation. Introducing a disruptive element would force him to react, to make mistakes. The siblings decided to act carefully, revealing fragments of their discovery to select board members and trusted allies within Lancaster Global. The whispers of hidden assets began circulating, creating uncertainty and tension in Victor's camp. Victor, naturally, noticed the subtle shifts. He called an emergency meeting, his confident facade hiding suspicion. "Something is happening," he said, eyes scanning the room. "I can feel it. Whoever is working against me, it won't end well for them." Alex and Isabella watched from behind the scenes, careful not to expose themselves fully. Every reaction, every word from Victor was a clue, a confirmation that their secret weapon was working. He was scrambling, yet he didn't know the true scale of what he was missing. One evening, Marcus handed Alex a digital copy of an obscure patent linked to their father's trust. "This is it," Marcus said quietly. "The one Victor never found. The moment you leverage this, the balance shifts completely. But you have to be bold. Timing is everything." Alex felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. "If we do this wrong, Victor could destroy the company, or worse, discredit us entirely." Marcus's expression was steady. "Or, if you do it right, you win decisively. And the company, and your family legacy, remains intact. Remember, the element of surprise is your greatest weapon." The next morning, Isabella presented a carefully crafted proposal to the board, under the guise of a new initiative. The patents, the assets, the trust, they were framed as opportunities to modernize Lancaster Global, maximize profits, and secure long-term sustainability. Victor, of course, attended the meeting, confident that he controlled the narrative. But as Isabella unveiled the details, his expression shifted from smug certainty to disbelief. Every word, every slide, revealed a layer of strategic advantage he hadn't anticipated. His grip on the company, and on the perception of control, was loosening. Alex and Isabella sat back, hearts racing but composed, watching Victor struggle to formulate a response. The room, once filled with tension and fear of his dominance, now pulsed with a new energy, a quiet, controlled anticipation of change. Their secret weapon had been more than just assets or patents. It was strategy, insight, and the ability to act decisively when Victor's overconfidence blinded him. The siblings had turned the tide, not through brute force, but through intelligence, courage, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. As the meeting concluded, Victor left the room silently, a storm of unspoken fury behind his eyes. Alex and Isabella exchanged a glance, one that spoke volumes. This was only the beginning. They had discovered their father's hidden advantage, and with it, they were ready to reshape the future of Lancaster Global. The secret weapon wasn't just a document or a patent, it was a testament to the power of knowledge, timing, and unity. And now, armed with this advantage, Alex and Isabella were no longer merely defending their legacy, they were taking control of it. The air in the Lancaster Global boardroom was thick with tension. It was the day of reckoning, the moment when Victor would finally face the consequences of underestimating Alex and Isabella. Weeks of meticulous planning, discreet maneuvers, and strategic leaks had set the stage for this confrontation. Now, everything depended on timing, precision, and courage. Victor entered the room with his usual air of dominance, a smug confidence etched into his face. The executives and board members who had once quivered under his authority now exchanged subtle glances, whispers of speculation spreading like wildfire. Something was shifting, and Victor could feel it. Alex and Isabella stood side by side at the front of the room, composed yet fierce. They were no longer just the hidden heirs, they were the architects of change, armed with their father's secret trust and the undiscovered patents. Every movement, every glance, carried the weight of their determination. "Victor," Alex began, his voice steady but firm, "you've controlled Lancaster Global for years. But control without vision is fragile, and arrogance can be your downfall." Victor's lips curled into a dismissive smirk. "Is this a joke, Alex? Or are you finally ready to admit you've overstepped?" Isabella stepped forward, holding a sleek tablet displaying detailed charts, patents, and financial data. "It's not a joke. It's the truth. Our father left a legacy that you never saw coming, hidden assets, untapped innovations, and legal structures that give us authority you can't challenge. We've been patient, Victor, but today, everything changes." A murmur rippled through the boardroom. Executives who had long feared Victor now leaned in, eyes sharp with curiosity and anticipation. Victor's confident facade began to crack, his posture stiffening as he scanned the documents and figures Isabella revealed. "These patents," Isabella continued, "represent technologies that could revolutionize our market share. The hidden trust secures financial resources and strategic control. And the timing is perfect, we are ready to implement these initiatives immediately. You've been left behind, Victor. The question is, how do you respond?" Victor's jaw tightened, his mind racing. He could see the shift in the room, loyalty once unquestioned was wavering. Every executive, every senior manager, was now weighing the undeniable evidence. Victor realized he had underestimated the siblings' intelligence and resolve. His strategies, once infallible, were being dismantled piece by piece. Alex's voice cut through the tension. "Victor, this isn't about revenge. It's about preserving Lancaster Global's future. But make no mistake, you can't block progress. You've been given an opportunity to step aside gracefully, or the board will make the decision for you." The room went silent, the weight of the ultimatum hanging heavily. Victor's mind flickered between defiance and pragmatism. He had fought tooth and nail for decades, but now he faced a reality he could no longer control. His power, built on intimidation and fear, was collapsing under the weight of strategy, transparency, and legacy. For a brief moment, the old Victor, the one who thrived on dominance and manipulation, resurfaced. "You think you can take everything from me?" he demanded, his voice edged with desperation. "I built this empire. Without me, it's nothing." Isabella's eyes softened but remained unwavering. "Victor, the empire is bigger than any one person. Your vision laid the foundation, but innovation, courage, and unity will determine its future. You've had your time. Now it's ours." Alex stepped closer, letting the words sink in. "You can resist, and the board may even back you temporarily. But the truth is clear, and the support is shifting. Fight against this, and you'll only isolate yourself. Accept it, and we can move forward together, ensuring Lancaster Global thrives." Victor's expression faltered. He had never experienced a challenge like this: two young heirs, armed not with brute force, but with intelligence, insight, and undeniable proof of authority. The very board that had once celebrated his decisions now regarded him with doubt. Minutes passed like hours. The tension was palpable. Finally, Victor's shoulders slumped. The defiance faded, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement of reality. "Fine," he said, voice low, but laced with bitter pride. "I'll step aside. But this company, it was mine first." Alex nodded respectfully. "And it will remain ours together, Victor. Your contributions are acknowledged, but the future belongs to vision, integrity, and unity." The boardroom exhaled collectively. The siblings had not only survived Victor's scrutiny, they had dismantled his control with grace and strategy. Every executive, once silent, now quietly supported the transition. As Victor walked out, his presence diminished but not entirely erased. Alex and Isabella turned to each other, a quiet sense of triumph passing between them. They had faced the storm, navigated treacherous waters, and emerged victorious, not through aggression, but through wisdom, preparation, and the courage to claim what was rightfully theirs. Outside the boardroom, sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the siblings as they stepped forward into a new era. Lancaster Global, once dominated by a single overbearing figure, now stood poised for transformation under the leadership of the heirs who had been hidden for too long. This confrontation was more than a corporate battle, it was a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the power of rightful legacy. Victor's downfall was not just his own undoing, it was a necessary shift, a rebalancing that ensured the company, the employees, and the family's name would thrive for generations. Alex looked at Isabella and whispered, "We did it. The empire is ours, not to dominate, but to honor, grow, and protect." Isabella smiled, her eyes reflecting both relief and resolve. And this is only the beginning. The siblings had unlocked the final piece of their father's plan. They were ready for the challenges ahead, stronger, united, and prepared to build a legacy far greater than Victor could have ever imagined. The morning after Victor's resignation, Lancaster Global felt different, lighter, almost reborn. The oppressive weight of decades of fear and intimidation had lifted, replaced by an air of anticipation, innovation, and hope. Alex and Isabella walked through the headquarters together, greeted with quiet smiles and nods from employees who had once dared not speak their minds. Today, their voices could finally be heard. Alex paused in the main atrium, sunlight streaming through the towering glass walls, casting intricate patterns across the polished marble floor. "It's surreal," he said, looking at Isabella. "I never imagined the day we'd actually be in charge, without fear, without shadows." Isabella smiled softly. "It's more than just being in charge," she replied. "It's about responsibility. Our father's legacy isn't just money or patents, it's the people who built this company with him, the families who rely on it, and the vision he couldn't finish alone. The siblings immediately convened the leadership team. Gone were the days of unilateral commands from a single figure. Instead, Alex and Isabella fostered a culture of collaboration. They introduced transparency measures, team-driven decision-making, and initiatives aimed at employee growth and innovation. Staff members who had once felt powerless now contributed ideas, many of which had been stifled under Victor's rule. One initiative that gained immediate traction was the Future Innovators Program, designed to mentor young engineers and developers within the company. Isabella personally oversaw the program, meeting each mentee, encouraging creativity, and ensuring that their ideas would not be lost in bureaucracy. Alex focused on partnerships and investments, ensuring that Lancaster Global expanded into socially responsible technologies, sustainable energy, medical tech, and AI for public welfare. The siblings' vision was ambitious but grounded in purpose. Every decision echoed the lessons they had learned: patience, courage, integrity, and empathy. Employees began to feel a sense of ownership, pride, and excitement they hadn't experienced in years. Morale skyrocketed, and soon the company began to attract some of the brightest talent in the nation. But the siblings didn't stop at internal transformation. They reached out to Victor with an olive branch, proposing a role as a senior advisor, not as a ruler, but as a consultant whose decades of experience could guide critical projects. Victor, initially resistant, realized that his attempts to cling to control were over, and reluctantly agreed. Over time, he began to recognize the effectiveness of the new leadership. While his ego struggled to adapt, he couldn't deny the thriving, reinvigorated company that bore the imprint of Alex and Isabella's vision. Beyond the corporate sphere, Alex and Isabella prioritized philanthropy. They established the Lancaster Foundation, a nonprofit aimed at supporting underprivileged youth in education and entrepreneurship. The foundation became a beacon of hope, funded not only by the company's profits but also by the siblings' personal commitment to create meaningful change. Their story of hidden heirs, perseverance, and triumph inspired countless individuals, becoming a viral narrative celebrated across media platforms. One evening, as the siblings walked through the company's rooftop garden, overlooking the city skyline, Isabella spoke quietly. "Do you think our father would be proud?" she asked. Alex glanced at her, then at the horizon, where the sun was setting in a fiery display of oranges and purples. "He would," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "We didn't just inherit a company. We inherited his dreams, his values, and the responsibility to make it better. I think he'd finally feel at peace." Isabella nodded, her eyes reflecting the last light of day. "And we've done it together. Not by fear, not by power, but with trust, courage, and vision." As months turned into years, Lancaster Global transformed into a symbol of ethical leadership, innovation, and social impact. Employees felt genuinely valued, communities benefited from charitable initiatives, and the sibling story of hidden inheritance, perseverance, and justice became a celebrated legend in business circles and beyond. Alex and Isabella also carved out time for personal growth. They traveled to meet other leaders, spoke at international conferences, and mentored emerging entrepreneurs. Despite their immense responsibilities, they remained grounded, remembering the struggles that had shaped them, and the lessons learned from their father's secrets. The siblings frequently reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from hidden heirs, unknown to the world, to leaders reshaping a global empire with vision, empathy, and integrity. Their bond grew stronger with every challenge, anchored in shared purpose and trust. They had not only reclaimed a legacy, they had expanded it, building a future that honored the past while embracing the potential of tomorrow. One evening, standing together in the new corporate headquarters, Isabella looked at Alex and smiled. "We've turned the impossible into reality. And this is only the beginning." Alex smiled back. "Yes, the empire is ours, but not to control, to create. To inspire. To leave the world better than we found it." As they watched the city lights flicker beneath them, they understood that their journey was never just about wealth or power. It had been about courage, resilience, and the strength to transform secrets into opportunities. And in that realization, they knew that Lancaster Global's new era had truly begun, one that would endure for generations, built on justice, vision, and heart. The hidden heirs had finally stepped into the light, and in doing so, they had illuminated a path for everyone who had ever doubted that a legacy could be reclaimed and remade with purpose.